Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing a guide on the Bohemians, a new Age of Empires 2 civilization added in one of the recent DLCs. I'm doing this guide mainly because of two things. A subscriber on Twitch messaged me and said, hey, can you have a Bohemian guide? I really want to learn the civ, and so I said, sure, let's do it. And you guys on the YouTube comments have told me you want to see more guides, and so here they are. Anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at how to play the Bohemians. So starting things off with the bonuses, the Bohemians are classified as a gunpowder and monk civilization, and their bonuses are as follows. They've got blacksmiths and universities costing -100 wood. They've got chemistry and hand cannoneer available in Castle Age. Their spearman line deals 25% more bonus damage. Their fervor and sanctity also affect villagers. These are monk technologies, and mining camp technologies are free, and this is a huge economy bonus. Their unique unit is the Hussite wagon, which is a siege weapon unit, and they've also got a secondary unique unit, which is the Hoofenies, which is a upgrade to the bombard cannon. The unique techs are Wagenburg tactics in Castle Age, giving their gunpowder units a additional 15% movement speed. And then they've got Hussite reforms in Imperial Age, which makes their monks and monastery technologies have their gold cost replaced by food. And then finally, their team bonus is that markets work 80% faster. Now, judging by these bonuses, we can tell right away that the Bohemians are mainly gunpowder civilization, but gunpowder tends to kick in a little bit later on in Castle Age and Imperial Age. And so by this, we can just easily conclude that the Bohemians are more of a late game powerhouse than anything else in the early game. Their only early game bonuses is that their spearman line does a bit more extra damage, and they've got the blacksmith costing 100 less wood. They've also got the free mining upgrades in Feudal, which could be considered a small boost to the early game. But aside from that, they clearly scale more and more towards the late game, and they get most of their power spikes in Castle Age and Imperial Age. Let's go ahead and take a look at the options from the tech tree to really understand how to play this civilization. Starting off in the archer range, it's pretty basic. You're actually missing Cav Archer, but you have Arbalest and Elite Skirmisher available with Hand Cannoneer in the Castle Age. No Thumbring though makes your Arbalest not that strong, and of course lacking Cav Archer means that you're a little bit limited with the options from your range. Moving on now to the barracks, they've got fully upgraded halberdiers and almost fully upgraded champions. We are of course missing the Gambeson's technology, making their infantry strong but not complete. Their stable is somewhat lackluster as they're missing Hussar and Paladin, and they're also missing some cavalry armor in the blacksmith. So overall, their cavalry is not the best. Also lacking bloodlines makes it so all-in cavalry play in Castle Age is basically non-existent. So use cavalry sparingly with the civilization and only mix it in for niche situations. Their siege is where they really shine, not because of their flexibility in the siege workshop. You actually don't have a lot of options, capping out at Cap Ram, pun intended, Onager, and Heavy Scorpion, which is quite nice. But you do have the Hoofenies, which is kind of the clutch of their entire siege regime. The Hoofenies is an amazing unit in the late game and an upgrade to the already insane bombard cannon. Hoofenies gets extra splash damage and more damage, as well as faster movement speed from the unique tech. So overall, it's an amazing unit to really rely on in that late game siege weapon situation. Their blacksmith is almost complete, just missing that cav armor that I mentioned earlier. And as far as navy, they've got an okay options for the early game, but they really fall flat later on, missing shipwright, dry dock, heavy demolition ships, fast fires, and of course no dronemen, leaving them with just galleons and elite cannon galleon as their late game options. And without shipwright or dry dock, those aren't great. So their navy caps out around Castle Age. University, however, is very nice. You've got siege engineers as a great option. You've got architecture as well as bombard cannon. You've got keep, and you've got a lot of different options to tech into through the university. And of course, this brings us to their castle and their unique unit, which is the Hussite wagon. And although this unit is getting a nerf on the most recent patch, or the patch that's going to be coming out soon, it's still a beast of a unit. The best part about this is that because it's a gunpowder unit and it's a siege unit, it actually doesn't require any upgrades besides siege engineers and the elite upgrade to get to its full potential. So in Castle Age, if you just get a castle and start spamming these guys, they're going to do a lot of work, and they're actually very strong. They're mainly insane versus archer units, archer and skirm, anything with a ranged projectile that's not a gunpowder, and they do pretty well against melee units, assuming that the melee units don't have a lot of attacks, so you're able to kind of take them out before they really dish it on you. And they kind of struggle against heavy armored melee units and siege weapons like mangonels and bomber cannons. But of course, since we have strong monks, going over now to their monastery, we can deal with the siege weapons by using redemption monks, own bomber cannon / hoofnits to take them out and let our Hussite wagon do its thing. And of course, economy upgrades, we do get both gold and stone shaft mining, and we get them for free, which is a huge power spike in the Castle Age. We also get all the other important upgrades in the economy industry, except crop rotation, which is not a huge loss. So after taking a look at their entire tech tree, we can kind of conclude that the civilization wants to have a very slow start in the feudal age. I'd recommend you rely on its range to get you through the early game by mixing in a little bit of archers and skirms and kind of just getting by until Castle Age. Feel free to open some militia militia or some men-at-arms, or even some scouts just to get by if needed, but don't rely on those two options heavily going into Castle Age because they simply don't hold up against some of the other civilizations out there. The strength of the Bohemian really comes in their late game and their gunpowder slash economy. The Bohemian economy benefits a lot from the free gold and stone mining upgrades, and these help especially in a situation where you can rely on castles on defense or on just your redemption monks to help defend against other siege pushes. And in the meantime, while we're defending, we can prepare some really strong pushbacks, like by getting chemistry in Castle Age and going for Hand Cannoneer to reclaim all the map control and push back with basically an Imperial Age unit, the Hand Cannoneer, that we have available in Castle Age. One really strong approach to the Civ is to go Hand Cannoneer plus Mangonels or redemption monks and go for heavy pushes in the Castle Age. You can also go for a castle drop early and go for Hussite Wagon if you're up against mass archer. So as a general game plan, if you're up against mass archers, you go Hussite Wagons, and if you're up against infantry or knights or cavalry, you go for the Hand Cannoneer. Against siege, Hand Cannoneer holds its own. Hussite Wagon does okay against Mangonels and Scorpions, but if you're ever having trouble, feel free to mix in your own Mangonels or go for redemption monks to take care of them. Those two strategies are what I consider to be the best options for the Bohemians, but some other options include crossbows with chemistry and skirms with chemistry, and especially if you get ballistics and land all your shots, those two options are pretty decent, but I think they kind of pale in comparison to the other two I mentioned as far as Castle Age play goes. Don't forget to pick up Sanctity for extra HP on your vills and Fervor for extra movement speed, which also counts as a little bit of an economy boost because if your vills move faster, that means they also work faster and gather more res, which is obviously a benefit. Moving on now to the Imperial Age, this is where the Bohemians really start to get to their massive late game compositions. So we've gotten through the Castle Age pretty safely, and in late game, the best options for the Bohemians tends to be Halberdier against anything cavalry. Because of that extra bonus damage, Halberdiers just trade super effectively, and then of course the Hand Cannoneer with the Wagenburg Tactics unique tech makes for a great backline unit. I don't recommend you rely too much on their Arbalest because without Thumbring, it's really a lackluster post-imp unit, so simply only use the Arbalest if it absolutely calls for it, and if nothing else works, or if you have a big bulk of crossbows left over, then sure, it's justifiable, but otherwise play towards your Hand Cannoneer or Hussite Wagon as a backline unit. The main goal of Bohemians in the late game is to rely on their Hoofknechts. This is like the absolute best unit the Civ can go for, and by picking up Siege Engineers and Wagenburg Tactics, you get a faster moving bomber cannon that has 13 range. It also does more damage, has more HP, and has more armor compared to other bombard cannons. So you easily went out on bombard cannon wars, and it's probably the best siege unit that you can have as far as a flexible against buildings and against military units. So like bombard cannons can snipe enemy units like skirmishers and arbalest, and it can also take down buildings, which is a key part of the composition, because if you consider the ideal Bohemian composition, we have Halberdiers, Hand Cannoneer, and bomber cannon, and this only really dies to like skirm arbalest, or at least Hand Cannoneer and Halbs do, but then the bomber cannon, the Hoofknechts, will take them out, and so the composition ends up being very, very complete and very hard for your opponent to stop. If you had the choice, or if you want to try to get to the perfect composition, aim for that composition 9 out of 10 games and you have the most success with the Civ. And of course, because this composition, or Bohemians in general, are a pretty slow but powerful Civ that like to rely on their death balls and not necessarily their raiding potential, I recommend you start stonewalling the sides if it's an open map, or if it's a closed map like Arena. Just make sure that as you're pushing, you're not vulnerable for your base getting raided and you have castles or stone walls at home to defend yourself. That is the absolute most key tip that you can have in late game to make this Civ work. Don't let yourself get raided to death, and force your opponent to fight your army where you want him to fight. The last thing that's worth mentioning is that the unique tech to make your monster techs and monks cost food. I really don't think this is a great tech unless it's super late game where you're floating a lot of food and gold is very scarce. Then sure, it could be justified, but honestly, monks aren't really that great in late game scenarios anyways, because there's 200 units on the field and it can be hard to focus conversions when there's so many units like that. However, if you really want monks in late game scenario, it can be a decent choice here and there, but the reason why the tech kind of falls flat is that monks are usually best in all-in pushes, and in all-in pushes you don't have food, you actually have more gold as you're trying to end the game fast before running out of gold becomes a problem. And so this tech is kind of a little bit awkward to use, to say the least. That's going to do it for the Bohemian guide. The last thing I'll mention for the Civ is that it's definitely best played in closed maps and in situations where you can force your opponent to take the fights that you want him to take. The more open the map, the harder it is to make the Civ work. And that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys do enjoy it, and let me know what Civ guide you want to see next. I've done most Civs in the game. I'm only missing like 5 to 10. So if your Civ isn't anywhere on YouTube, definitely let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to make a video if you guys are enjoying them. Take care and bye for now. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and peace.